Typically, romance and suspense stories don't usually fall into the realm of Christian literature. Usually it's because the physically romantic elements or the dark, often disturbing nature of suspense, that these two subgenres tend to get bypassed in Christian media, at least in the past. I'm very aware that that has changed in recent years. This week's interviewee uses both of those subgenres to great effect in her writing. I'm your host, Garrett K. Jones. Join me as we jump into the third interview of 2024's Author Awareness April Marathon. Welcome to The Right Way, where we talk book recommendations, creative writing tips, and this month especially, author interviews. I have another great marathon interview for you, but I have a few announcements before we slide into this week's conversation, starting with Free Comic Book Day and Star Wars Day. Both of those are coming up in just 2 weeks from today, and I'm excited because while there has been some proximity in the past between these two events, it's rare for the dates to actually overlap. I'll be down at DJ's Collectible Shop in downtown Hanford, signing and selling copies of all 5 books in my ongoing fantasy series, The Archives of Isink Ran. I love getting opportunities to talk with prospective readers, as well as catch up with people who already get into the series. Now, if you don't know anything about my series, check out this trailer for Book 4, Hadrian Corvus of Farfell.
Callum, the twin brother of the Dragon Mist, has landed upon the island province of Farfell, an isolated spit of land with a past steeped in ancient secrets. He has been recruited by Asar il-Kadasur to retrieve something from antiquity, but Callum's wanderlust may have gotten him into a situation far beyond anything he ever expected. He faces demons and monsters, while learning about how the Kadasur built creation. The question Callum has to ask himself is, what will he find next as he seeks out Hadrian Corvus of Farfell?
I've been making this announcement for the last few weeks because I have a free signed poster that I would love to give away to one lucky winner. But I can't do that until I've reached my goal of 200 subscribers on YouTube. Now, entry to the giveaway is absolutely 100% free. Once you've registered, down in the link in the video description, make sure to subscribe to the channel and I'll announce a winner when I hit that magic number of 200. Lastly, I want to let you guys know about my writing workshops that I have coming up through the late spring and going into the summer. I have signed up to begin writing workshops at the Hanford branch of the Kings County Library once again. I am waiting to hear back on the approval, but as soon as I know, you guys will know, because I love my subscribers and I love the people who attend my classes. They're some of the best people ever. It is entirely possible that I will have that information to you guys prior to the airing of this episode, but I want you guys to be in the know. Now, with that aside, let's kick off this awesome interview. This week, I got to interview an amazing author who has written her work while traveling abroad and serving in Christian missions ministry. I connected with Tiffany through social media, and it's rare that I get to connect with authors that not only profess their faith in Christianity, but also live it out. I hope you enjoy this third interview of Author Awareness April. All right, Tiffany, thank you for joining me on the show. It is a pleasure to have you. Tell me about your work and what you write.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm Tiffany. I publish as T.E. Price, and I write Christian fiction, but I tend to delve into a couple of different subgenres. So I've written romance and suspense, and I'm currently working on another romance. So romance seems to be calling my name these days, but my suspense novel was really fun to write as well. And I've written a couple of short stories, and one that is releasing in well, it's been released on Spotify, and it can be released through my newsletter as well. So those who subscribe to my newsletter can get it, and it's kind of like this vigilante detective who's on a mission to improve the world through the injustice that she's seeing and trying to correct it in her own method. So yeah, some detective work there, but yeah, so generally that's what I tend to write.
So you said you're a Christian lit author. How does that work with suspense? Because usually suspense deals with some really dark material.
Yes, it's tricky. Yes. So I do delve into some dark material. Take Flight is my suspense novel, and it discusses domestic abuse, which is dark. And there are some multifaceted layers to that, no doubt. What I wanted to achieve there was to provide this message of hope for the readers. So, in the midst of darkness and in the midst of difficulties, that there is a hope, and that God can be our hope, and that we can rely on Him in times of trouble. And so, there is that element of darkness, absolutely, within suspense. And I would say that there's some darkness in my romances as well. I think this life, we're naive to think that Christians go through this life without trials and tribulations of their own. And my hope with my writing is to just explore the darkness, explore the difficulties, and try to shed some light on where Christ might fit within those difficulties. And yeah, and so, yes, to answer your question, there is darkness, but I hope that by the end of the novel, readers are able to grasp a sense of light and hope that can be found.
That's really cool. So how did you get into writing? Was this something that you've always wanted to do, or was this you just hit a point in your life where you're like, I want to write a book?
It's a great question. I come from a family of writers, so it's in my genes. And I think what happened was I was teaching at a high school, and it was great. I enjoyed that experience. But then my husband and I left to do some missional work in Manchester, England, and so we got linked up with the church there. And my goal was to go and to teach in England, which would have been a good goal, but I think God was leading me elsewhere. And as I got there, I thought, this might be a chance to to start writing and write my story, which is autobiographical fiction. That's my first publication, Love's True Colors.
Mhm.
Uh, and yeah, I thought, why not give it a go? And if it's something that, I'm not great at, then it'll be something that, maybe my kids can read one day, and that'll be great. And that's enough. But through some editing processes and talking with, some publishing houses, I thought, okay, I actually might be able to publish this and continue writing. And I did think, it was hard work. Writing a novel is not for the faint-hearted, so it was hard work. And I thought, okay, that's my one and done. That was the story that I wanted to write, and then another story started playing on my heart, and I thought, okay, maybe I might be writing one more. And then I guess that's just how it goes. The journey goes. It's one more, and then one more, and then you hit a point at a certain time where you go, okay, maybe I'm just going to be a writer. Maybe it's not just one more and I'll be done, but maybe this process is going to continue. And I find a lot of joy in my creative writing. So yeah, so I've just kind of followed that trail, and that started back in 2016. So here we are today, a couple of novels later, a couple of short stories, and some hopefully some novels in the works.
Obviously, faith is a big inspiration for you as a writer. What are some other inspirations that you have? Do you draw from art, music, television?
I believe for me personally, I draw from real life experiences. So, um, yeah, Love's True Colors, like I said, autobiographical fiction. So a lot of my story in that plot, and then Take Flight. It I was inspired by someone who was fairly close to me, who had experienced domestic abuse, and it was interesting to see um, just the prevalence within our society. And the more I researched it, and the more I thought about it, I figured this might be a story worth telling, because people who have experienced it often feel, um, instead of feeling, the victim, they tend to feel guilt and shame, um, and that's really what drove my experiences. I thought this is incredibly unique, and I wanted to be able to draw some light on the experiences, but also really delve into the darkness and shed hope in that scene. So it was a tricky one to write, but one that was certainly worth exploration. And the inspiration came from those around me and from the research that I conducted.
So, what's been one of the hardest parts or the biggest challenges that you've encountered as an author?
Yeah, I would have to say the publishing. So writing is where I pull most of my joy, and I find satisfaction in my writing. And the publishing element is so far greater than just writing, and it's something that I had to learn early on, and I'm still learning. So that lesson is endless, but it is fascinating. Yeah, I have several platforms and trying to figure out where's my target audience and how do you market this and how do you become marketable for publishing houses or for agents.
Mhm.
And I would say that's probably the hardest part. It's not the writing part, it's everything else that goes into it. It's the blog, it's the newsletter, it's the building on your platforms. And yet at the same time, I've found, as difficult as it is, I have found inspiration from other authors on these platforms. I have found, just a lot of research. These authors are phenomenal in posting regularly, and so I'm able to glean from the research that they've done and learn in my own field of whatever work in progress that I have going. I'm able to kind of pull from these platforms. So it's not just to go, oh, hey, look, I've got this following and it's great, and all of these people are interested. It's more so, wow, I'm gleaning from all of these different authors, and they all have different viewpoints and insights and readers and whatnot. So it's difficult, but at the same time, it's necessary, and it's stretched me as an author, which has been phenomenal.
So, if you could give any advice to other would be authors out there, what would you say to them, Tiffany?
Yes, I would say trust the process. It's something that I wish I would have listened to. It's a piece of advice I wish I would have listened to a lot earlier in my publishing endeavors. So it's a long process, and it's one that I'm still having to remember. It with whatever work in progress I have, it's going to be a long process. So I think authors tend to go, okay, I've got this book and I'm done with it and I want to publish it, and how do I get it, into readers' hands? That's a great question. And that's one that we should all be asking. But if that is a time consuming process, it's one worth taking. So I would say join a writer's group. That's something that really stretched my limits as an author. And being able to get feedback from other authors and just yeah, any type of writers group is fantastic, and there are several online as well. So if you can't meet in person, then finding a writers group online is a phenomenal way to really glean from other authors. And then as you work through that process, you're going to go through edits with publishing houses or with an agent who's pitched it to different publishing houses, and that also is a stretching process. But trust it. So really dive into the editorial changes. It's something you always have your stances, and you go, I wish I could keep it this way. I want to keep my novel this way, or whatever it is that you're working on. And an editor might come in and say, it can't be done, or we don't want it this way. And I've had a stronghold when I've had other people read my manuscripts and I go, no, I don't want to change that. I don't want to change that. And then I finally cave and I change it. And I'm like, this is what I should have done from the beginning. This is so much better. So it's really tricky. And I think it takes a level of humility to be able to go, okay, let me see what other people think about this.
So, Tiffany, we're getting ready to wrap up here. How can people get a hold of you? How can they connect with you? How can they get copies of your books? Spill.
Yeah. So there are a couple of different ways. I tend to use Instagram as one of my main platforms. So that's Tiffany Eve Price, and that's the handle for Instagram. But then I also have a website. So that's tiffanyeveprice.wordpress.com, and that is an excellent way to see where my books are listed. I have a spot on my website that says books for sale, and that includes both my novels and my short stories, which are available for free on Spotify. And those two places generally tend to be the best way to contact me. But like I said, I'm releasing tidbits about my writing and about some interesting research, I guess, endeavors through my newsletter. And the newsletter link is available on my website. So that's another way where people can find me and follow me and see what I'm getting up to these days.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Tiffany. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. A huge thank you to T.E. Price for being my third guest for Author Awareness April. Now, if you're interested in picking up copies of her work or connecting with her through social media, you can find those links down in the video description. If you'd like to see a longer, uncut edition of my conversation with Tiffany, you can do so as a channel supporter by going to patreon.com/GKJ Publishing, and you can sign up for as little as $1 per month. All patron levels get access to the unedited interviews, which include parts of those conversations that don't get included in what pops up on YouTube. Hey, thanks for watching. If you haven't done so, make sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications on new videos, just like this one. I'll be back next week for the final interview of this year's marathon with sci-fi and fantasy author Tori Q. Jones, no relation. I'll see you guys then.